Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, political-related subjects, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com, and on the American Guns and Glory Network, YouTube, and numerous other media. A new show is posted every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. Questions and comments can be emailed to me at bob@firedupmail.com. Again, that's bob@firedupmail.com, or leave a message on my office recorder, 702-257-1060. Again, that's 702-257-1060. If you don't leave a message, I can't call you back. You know the drill. This show is going to be different than what I've run in the recent past. Yesterday, I taped a special bulletin show with attorney Don Green to deal with the change in gun laws and the woo-flu gun sales and all the regulations that are changing and moving all over the country. That show actually ran just about within the time limits we do for our regular broadcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run that show. It is important information on this special report from Don Green, and when it's over, that will be our Fired Up show for this week. I want it to get out to our 7,000 or so subscribers, and it's too important of information, I think, just to capsize it into a small segment of Fired Up. So we're putting it up, and here it comes right now. Good morning and welcome to a special report. This is Bob Irwin. I'm with, generally my show is Fired Up with Bob Irwin. This is a special report that's being put together by attorney Don Green on all of these law changes that are upcoming and what's going on, so gun owners and dealers can all get on the same page and we don't end up violating a bunch of laws that you don't even know exist. So I'm going to turn this over to Don and I'll comment here and there, but this is California, Nevada attorney Don Green.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bob. Bob and I have been researching a number of points for the listeners on the American Guns and Glory Network and on Fired Up with Bob Irwin. Significantly, last Friday, April 10th, 2020, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms took decisive, timely action to inform federal firearms licensees of the following. May we have the first slide? The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms sent a letter to all federal firearms licensees across the United States, literally thousands. Now, we got this letter by email, so many federal firearms licensees in Nevada and some of them who I've contacted in Southern California acknowledged that they had received this letter. Some of them were so busy they hadn't checked their email or their mail. But what the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has said, in reaction to the coronavirus situation. Okay, this is slide number 2 for the viewing audience and the listening audience and the ATF response to COVID-19. Very specific. 1, federal firearms licensees are allowed tables outside their gun stores, which is very unusual. Usually it's been limited to gun shows. Number 2, federal firearms licensees are permitted to do transactions using drive-through windows. Number 3, federal firearms licensees can conduct business in a parking lot and any other location where it's feasible and I guess in compliance with local law. Social distancing is recommended. Now, we have to understand that this letter came out some 96 hours ago on April 10th. We're broadcasting on Tuesday, April 14th, just 4 days later. So the ATF is taking this significant action. And and Bob, what do we do? What do we know about the Las Vegas area?
Well, the sheriff has agreed, and he's allowing the same thing. His enforcement will be in compliance with this directive from ATF that as long as they maintain social distance. Yeah, under Nevada statute 414.155, the sheriff has the ability to do that, to keep gun shops open, and all he's doing is making sure they comply with social distances. So they're trying to limit the number of people that are in stores, and virtually every gun shop, between the ones that Don has visited and I have visited, they've put their little blue lines out in the parking lot, on their walkways and so forth, so people stand in line, and they don't let more than 4 or 5 people in the store at one time. They have, they're kind of using the things that markets are using to have the limit to capacity. Of course, the social distancing has literally killed concealed weapon classes, because you can't put people in a little room together for 8 hours. And some of their range stuff has to be rechanged to let people shoot guns, but with limiting the number of people and the number of shots in the range and so forth. But they're all open and they're all working, and I understand from our governor now that it is a essential business.
Yes.
Having a gun shop.
And we had that directive from the Department of Homeland Security within the past 10 days, which specifically said that gun stores are essential businesses. Now, following up what Bob has said about the concealed weapon classes, which are being limited or possibly non-existent if they cannot comply with social distancing, between the January and now March of 2020, there have been approximately 3.7 million background check requests. Now that's extraordinary. On March 17th, there were like 120,000 in one day. And if you figure if they only work 8 hours a day, do the numbers. That's about 13,000 an hour. So with these background checks, we haven't seen this kind of action in background checks since the Sandy Hook incident back around 2012, 2013. But almost every form of media, television, radio, internet, are broadcasting stories about people at gun stores and lining up. And almost 100% of the media, whether you're liberal, whether you're conservative, whether you're anti-gun, whether you're pro-gun, state the following: that the people who are buying guns are, quote, concerned about social unrest, racial attacks, looting, and scarcity of resources have been cited by the industry insiders and customers. Now, this is to be contrasted by what some not the media, but some organizations such as the Every Town for Gun Safety, which has said that, quote, guns will not make America safer in the face of COVID-19, end quote. But that's not the issue. The issue is that people have been told to stay home. And if they stay home, they've got to have food and toilet paper and water and other necessities and medicine. And there are people out there who have not taken heed to the to directives to shelter in place almost, and they have not taken any steps to keep these resources in the home, and they're going to try to go out and get someone else's. It's quite possible. So people have naturally said, we got to buy a gun. And Bob, what has been your impression about gun sales, especially in the Las Vegas, Clark County area?
Well, gun sales, of course, are through the roof. And it's because that crime is actually up. It may surprise some listeners that the criminals aren't obeying the laws, but what's happening here is what used to be burglaries have now become home invasions.
Yes.
Because the people are home, and they're stuck in their home, and we have a huge number of these gun sales are being driven by that they need to protect what's theirs because of the extreme risk of a home invasion now, and because they believe that guns are going to be outlawed. If the conservatives, the pro-gun people, lose the election, as we're getting hammered with all these TV commercials and so forth, the Firearms Policy Coalition has done a lot of work on this and come up with a list of what's going on. I think, Don, you have some of their information.
Yes, we do. And Bob, what is the Firearms Policy Coalition?
It's a private organization that spends its time keeping up with gun laws and fighting them, filing lawsuits. They've filed all the major lawsuits. The NRA's filed some too, but you'll find that the Firearms Policy Coalition is really doing a lot more because they go after everybody that tries to take away your guns and file lawsuits everywhere.
That's correct. And Bob, for example, in Pennsylvania on March 19th, the Democratic governor, Governor Tom Wolf, issued a directive which closed a number of inessential businesses, which first included gun stores. And the gun rights group, Firearms Policy Coalition, filed an immediate lawsuit. I saw it. It was hastily put together, but it made the essential points. And that was that the governor had, quote, overstepped his authority and constitutional authority to impose criminal and civil penalties on those who did not comply with these closure orders. And that essentially is a due process argument, a very smart argument. The governor then revised his order and made it clear that gun stores would be exempt because under state law, gun sales must be made in person. So as long as they complied with the social distancing, that was fine. Now let's contrast that lawsuit in Pennsylvania against the one filed about a week ago in California. In California, the lawsuit was filed by I believe it's like Californians for Guns or something like that. Very fine attorneys, very good lawyers. And the primary point was that Governor Newsom of California had overstepped his authority, almost using the exact words as the converse lawsuit in Pennsylvania. Now, the judge in federal court in Los Angeles, an Obama appointee, stated she was going to deny the request for a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction because she said that the city and county of Los Angeles did not overstep their authority. But she said that that despite the claims that it was against, for public safety, that there should be gun closures, the judge said that the lawsuit was moot. And the judge in California did not rule on the merits of the lawsuit. It was moot because the Los Angeles County District Attorney had said, or the Los Angeles County City Attorney had said, gun stores can stay open, which was directly opposite of the Sheriff Villanueva in California, who had said that he is going to enforce an order closing the gun stores. The gun stores are open in California. So we can see that these lawsuits, while the one in Pennsylvania threatened, successful, the one in California was filed, but not entirely unsuccessful. And we have lawsuits which are pending in New Jersey, New York, Michigan, Washington, and California, where they're challenging the decisions of the governors and the authorities in these states, New York, New Jersey, Washington, and California. So much in Washington, there's a woman who runs a kind of a mom and pop store in Washington, and she says she's not closing and has not been closed, and she's saying that it is her right to sell these weapons to people who are exercising their rights to protect themselves. And Bobby, you had some other comments concerning what's going on in the feds. Well,
in the feds, we have what's going on is this nationwide thing. You have all heard of House Resolution 5717. It is called the Gun Violence Protection and Safety Act of 2020. There's a companion identical bill sponsored by Senator Elizabeth Warren in the Senate, which is Senate Bill 3254. And there is a summary written by the Library of Congress, the deep state perhaps, but it's the equivalent of the Legislative Council Bureau here in Nevada, that looks at bills and does summaries to tell you what the bill says. And it says this bill makes changes to federal framework governing sale, transfer, possession of firearms and ammunition. And this is what we're looking for if the Democrats should take office. It says generally requires individuals to obtain a license to purchase, acquire, or possess firearms or ammunition. There's about 50 pages more telling you what that is. Creates new background check requirements for firearms transfers between private parties. Requires law enforcement agencies to be notified of a firearms background check denial, so the police can get involved if you're turned down. Creates a statutory process for a family or household member to petition courts for extreme risk protective orders. We've done a couple of stories on that on this show. Anybody who some individual or family member thinks might be capable of creating violence. Restricts the import, sale, manufacture, transfer, or possession of semi-automatic assault weapons. Does that sound familiar? Restricts the import, sale, manufacture, transfer of large capacity ammunition feeding devices. That's anything over 10 rounds or 7 rounds, depending on how they word it in the final bill. Restricts manufacture, sale, purchase, and receipt of what they call ghost guns. That is where you have the ability to build your own firearm at home, and you better put a serial number on it. You better type your name and address, stamp it in the metal, because otherwise it's what they call a ghost gun and it's untraceable. Even if you give it to somebody else. Well, if you give it to somebody else, there are already regulations that says it has to have a name and serial number. Makes trafficking in firearms a standalone offense. That's not good either. It would take more time than we've got to explain that, but we're getting down there to what really matters. Requires federally licensed gun dealers to submit annually and certify compliance with a security plan to detect and stop firearms theft. So the federal government can come in and demand that you put extra locks on doors and burglar alarms and so forth. And here is the big one. Removes limitations on civil liabilities of gun manufacturers. That's the one the Consumer Product Safety Commission will come in, and they have the ability to file lawsuits and so forth. But if we lose the civil liability protection that gun dealers and manufacturers and distributors have for misuse of their products, the entire gun industry will be closed the next day. You don't have to worry about any of this other stuff being enforced because there'll be no guns for sale. How could a gun dealer possibly sell or fix a broken or do anything with a firearms transaction if he is responsible for everything that firearm does, whether stolen, converted to a machine gun, whatever goes wrong with it, civilly, the manufacturer would be sued for any damage caused by the firearm simply because he entered that firearm into commerce. The firearms, removing that civil liability protection is the end of the firearms industry.
Yes. And Bob,
there's nothing beyond that. No?
And Bob, other than on this program, I've never heard, it's possible, I have never heard or seen anything on House Resolution 5717. It is being slowly sneaked through Congress because they believe that they are luring the American people to sleep with COVID-19, coronavirus, and all these statistics which are coming out. And so they're luring them to sleep. And what they're trying to do is infringe on the Second Amendment, which says, quote, shall not be infringed, end quote. You're not hearing about this on the mainstream media because they don't want you to hear about it. They want it to be snuck through with Congress. Or if it doesn't pass, if the Democrats take the House and the Senate in the election, which is always a possibility, they're going to pass these laws. And these laws are going to affect everything that has been done in the state of Nevada. Now, we have to thank Governor Sisolak for his leadership in Nevada by putting about 80,000 people out of work on the Strip in one day. And what, about 5,000 or 6,000, maybe 10,000 in Reno. And what he's done is he's probably saved lives. Look what's happened in New York. These people are living on top of each other. And just yesterday, over 700 people died. And we've had, about 120 deaths in Nevada in total. They have 5 or 6 times that per day in New York. Forget about the population statistic. We have to understand these people in New York, the people in Chicago, the people in Seattle, in the town, and in Los Angeles. These people practically live on top of each other. At least in Nevada, we're somewhat spread out in most places. We do have the COVID-19 virus. Yes, it's everywhere. It's in Guam. The only place which has not been detected is in Antarctica. So. And there are people who live there. And get this, last night, in fact, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department state that an inmate at the Clark County Detention Center tested positive for COVID-19. Here's the kicker. And here's what's not being reported. That inmate has been in there since November or December of 2019. So how many potential prisoners have been infected with COVID-19? Or is it something that lays dormant? You see, that's the point. And the police are taking protective measures at CCDC. They've cut down on the number of people who can go in. They cut down on, the attorneys go in. We can only do phone visits. And we're making some serious, quick adjustments. And our police and Sheriff Lombardo really has to be thanked for the quick work that they're doing. They're not sitting around waiting for the governor of the state to do a press conference on YouTube as is going on in New York. They are taking swift, decisive action. And Bob, can you comment on, again, on the number of firearms which people are trying to buy here in Nevada?
Well, it's ridiculous. Every gun shop in town is running out of everything, and there's a run on guns and ammunition that is unimaginable. The background checks are stacked up, of course, because the government can't handle all the background checks. But the reason that's happening is they're stuck in their homes. Crime is up because of home invasions, as we talked about earlier, and they've got to be able to defend their house. As I said earlier, burglaries are becoming home invasions because everybody's home. If you go through the news reports in the local papers and so on, we're having 6 or 7 or 8 defensive shootings in houses every day. The numbers are just staggering, and we're going to be in a point where you're defending your house because that's all you've got, and the bad guys, as I said, aren't obeying the law. They're going where the toilet paper is stored, the guns are stored. They steal guns first up because you can fence guns for about 70% of their value. Jewelry, they're lucky to get 10% of value. So they grab the guns. If there are guns in the house, that's where the bad guys go. And we have this self-appreciating problem that just grows.
Yes.
The crime rate is going to go up. The public is exactly right in buying all these guns and ammunition, not only because the left is trying to take it away from everybody, but because they need it more now because of crime.
That's correct, Bob. And everywhere you go in Las Vegas, and I've been out to Pahrump, and I've spoken to my colleagues in the Los Angeles area and in New York, and in Nevada, we are very fortunate to have a a community which has adapted very, very quickly to these changing circumstances. The purpose of this show today, with Bob and I putting it together as an emergency broadcast, has not been to preach the Armageddon or the end of the world. It is to advise and inform our viewers and our listeners as to how these particular points affect Nevada and California. That's where I'm licensed. I cannot speak to the laws in Arizona or another state. But to show you, and I think that we brought to bear everything that we've said today to talk about how it affects Nevada and California. And so we're very grateful to your audience and to Rigel Studios for allowing us to put together. And any closing remarks, Bob, philosophical points?
If you don't vote this time around, this morning Obama announced his support of Joe Biden. And he's already talked about, his leading person to become his vice president is Pocahontas herself, Elizabeth Warren. Can you imagine Elizabeth Warren as president? What's going to happen to your guns? We're dead. You've got to stop this by supporting conservative candidates. Vote.
That is correct, Bob, and we want all the people in your viewing audience and your listeners to stay safe, use the appropriate measures. We've taken measures here at Rigel Studios, and we'd like to have everyone do the same. Stay safe and follow the law. Don't do anything you're not supposed to. You do have the rights to protect yourselves in your homes, and always welcome to call Bob and I. Thank you.
And we are back. I certainly hope you enjoyed that special report from Don Green and I. It is, with all this stuff going on, it is critically important to get that information out. You can check out our recent shows at firedupwithbobirwin.com. It contains several dozen recent episodes. If you subscribe, when you see it, it will be sent to your computer or your cell phone automatically. We'll be back next Thursday on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com, on YouTube, and on the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other radio and media outlets throughout the country. When watching on any media, just click on subscribe, and the shows will be sent to your computer or your phone automatically. Please forward these broadcasts to your friends. Our logo merchandise, hats, and my books and so forth are available at Battlefield Vegas, just behind Circus Circus on the Las Vegas Strip. Remember, the audio portion is rebroadcast for radio listeners on the Nevada Talk Network. It's about 30-some plus stations around Nevada now, AM and FM. You can find all the stations at KELY1230.com. Thanks for supporting Fired Up. And in these perilous times, please be careful. Take care of yourself. Freestyle Martial Arts, located at 5693 South Jones, right at the corner of Russell Road. My friend Goker runs that studio. They train UFC fighters. They have classes for children, adults, old folks like me. You can reach them at 702-551-9009. That's 702-551-9009. CCS Gunsmithing is run by my good friend Chris Eifelt. He runs the NRA, Friends of the NRA dinners. He's on Rainbow and Sahara. You can reach him, a fine gunsmith, at 702-365-1732. That's 702-365-1732.